What is one key takeaway that you really hope it just shines through the book? What's that one key takeaway?
The biggest takeaway is live each day like a playoff game, right?
How can we actually inspire team members around us when our overall business is not just that exciting or interesting? How can we do that?
It's mindset. It's helping people. You have to find what you're doing for people and serving people, and then what you're doing for your employees and serving them, and let that excitement and that passion be contagious. Success is not how much money you make or what your position is in a company or the awards you've won, right? Success is having fulfillment.
Today we are joined by a true underdog. He went from living with his family in a broke-down trailer to building Powerhome Solar, a giant company with 2,100 employees, over $500 million in annual sales. Not only has he done this, but he hosts the True Underdog podcast. His book, Own Your Power, is out, new on YouTube. Jayson Waller, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. As I was kind of preparing for this episode, there's so many different questions. I have so many questions, Jayson, and all the after hours entrepreneurs want to know. But I want to start with your mindset on digital media. You're growing a multi-million-dollar business. Why is it so important for you to be on YouTube, to have a podcast? Why is that so important?
Well, a couple years ago, we decided to put a face with the brand, not just a logo. It used to be just the Powerhome logo. And we actually had a famous actor that we were talking to, right? We were discussing trying to bring Morgan Freeman on to do all the Powerhome Solar commercials. And our agency, Sussman Agency, that was handling all of our TV and branding and marketing said, no, man, you got to go on the commercials. And I'm like, I really don't want to go on the commercials. That's not my giddy up. I'm fine. They're like, no, they need a face with the brand, and nobody's as passionate about solar as you. So we talked about it, kind of like the My Pillow guy theory and all of that, that if you have a face with the brand, people will want to buy more. It's not just a logo. Now there's somebody in their home that they trust. And so we started with that. We did a commercial with the Detroit Youth Choir in the Fox Theater, and it went really well. And I was like, oh, I can read. I can do a little bit of this stuff for commercials. I'm not too shabby. So we really started to take off. And when that happened, it started to build my brand as well. And then, my podcast I was doing for fun exploded. I had great people on there. And then been on some TV shows, 2 Minute Drill and Office Hours off Bloomberg and Amazon. And all of those things have built a brand. And the bigger the brand is, for yourself, the bigger your company is. It all turns into sync. People think that you're just building one for one. No, it all helps each other. People that might follow me are like, oh, that's Powerhome. Maybe they get a job, or they might follow Powerhome and they're like, oh, that's Jayson. He's the owner. I'll listen to the podcast. It all can help each other if you do it the right way. And digital marketing allows you to really build those three-headed monsters: your business, your podcast, and your brand, at least for me.
So that makes a lot of sense. And particularly for someone like you, Jayson, who has a very compelling underdog story, I think you really want to lean into that. You've leveraged that in the past, and it's been really powerful. And I've been really into this art of storytelling. But I think a lot of people, Jayson, even business owners, are going to say, I'm not that interesting. I went to college. I started a business. It's doing pretty good. I'm feeding my family. What do you say to people who say, Jayson, that's great. It works for you, but I don't actually have a compelling story? What would you say to these people?
Everybody has some kind of story. Everybody's had something that they've overcome, some kind of BS that slowed them down, that they challenged themselves to get through. Each story is different. I mean, my story, there's people that have way worse lives than I had growing up. I mean, we were poor, semi-abusive growing up. That's it. There's people had it 10 times worse than that. But what you do with that, and I think the story only allows people to be relatable to you, but your lessons of failure and your growth is what people need to hear. And so whether you have a story or not, you can always talk about your growth and your failures and things that make you better that you can share with other people out there so it can be more relative.
And as I was kind of reading through your book here, which is coming out very soon, Own Your Power, here on October 12th, I kind of recognized that. You said, listen, it doesn't really matter, how bad your story is. Everyone has to overcome some sort of challenge. And, I also think that if you haven't had to overcome that massive challenge yet, it's coming and it's going to punch you in the face, right? So, you've got this large company, $500 million in sales, 2,100 employees. Are you worried that the next challenge is going to be even greater than the last? How do you deal with that pending uncertainty? It's a really scary thing.
Yeah, it is. I stay in the moment. People ask, we just had our best month last month, 72 million in sales last month. People are like, how is that even fathomable? How do you adjust to that? Well, it's no different than doing 55 million 2 months ago, right? If you stay in the moment, it's never too big for you and you're never too big for it. And I learned that from Barry Sanders, who was on the podcast. Like the way he brought that up, I was like, were the lights too big for you? How did that go? And he said, no, Jason, I stayed in the moment. As I grew as a player and I became a better player and more valuable on the team and kind of a national spotlight on him, he had to stay in the moment. And you have to have small goals and small wins. When you set these, these high expectations, it takes too long to get there. You have to stay in the moment and grow with these small wins. And that's kind of what I've done. I remember year 1, we did 3 million in sales. Year 2 was 14, 3 was 40, 4 was 105, 5 was 180. Last year was 380. We're on pace to do 750 million this year. But that's what happens. If you stay in the moment, you stay growing, it never is too big for you. And it's never too small for you. You can't be too big for it either. You can't, get comfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and you have to focus on the small wins and staying in there. And I think, as long as I can get people around me, I believe life and I believe business are like a puzzle. And you need different people with different abilities, or what I call superhero traits, that you can kind of align them together to take it to the next level. A lot of entrepreneurs out there, they have big egos and they think they got to be great at everything. You only got to be great at 1 or 2 things. You find people that are great at other things to surround you, to bleed and believe like you do, to help build the business. That's the key. That's something I've had to learn along the way, because I used to try to do everything from the accounting to all that. I'm not an accounting guy. I didn't go to college. But when it got too big, I was like, time out. I'm not going to let the brand suffer. I'm going to hire someone smarter than me that understands that part of the business, that I can complement that person by having vision, execution, operation, sales. This person could be the accounting. Then I hired somebody that can help build HR and compliance. And then I find someone to do marketing. Like, you got to be able to be open and be, have enough humility and have enough, to be humble enough to bring someone on to help build something. You can't do it alone.
Yeah, and as after-hours entrepreneurs, I think that's a really scary thing, handing over the reins to your baby, right? To something that you've really, really put blood, sweat, and tears into. And one of the things that you're a big fan of, and I think that you attribute a lot of the success to your company, is in not just putting experts in these different positions around you, but inspiring them. A company vision, super important. And with something like solar, obviously there's a big vision. There's a lot of inspiration behind solar, empowering renewable energy, clean energy. But there's a lot of businesses out there that aren't that exciting, right? I sell car insurance. I plant plants, or I sell widgets, right? How can we actually inspire team members around us when our overall business is not just that exciting or interesting? How can we do that?
It's mindset. It's helping people. You have to find what you're doing for people and serving people, and then what you're doing for your employees and serving them, and let that excitement and that passion be contagious. Because, I used to sell home security. I mean, home security is cool, but it's not life-changing cool. But I was excited. I found a reason to do it. Like, man, I'm saving lives. I'm putting signs in yards. I'm putting cameras up. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I did, until I didn't. Until I was like, whoa, solar's cool. Like, I want to get into solar. Home security's kind of getting tainted, and there's so many companies. But whatever it is you do, you have to have a reason you do it. Like, you like it. It can't be, I just sell car insurance because I'm just trying to get a paycheck. You sell car insurance because you're a hell of a salesperson, and you really want to help people save money in car insurance, and you feel like you can get them to the next level of not being ripped off by somebody else, and you want to empower and hire other people, and you want other people to have great careers with your company and own a house and get married and buy a house. Like, you want them to do things. That's where you get your passion and your why from. If you don't like the product you're selling, if you're not if it's not life-changing or exciting. I mean, I say success, and this is a fact, success is not how much money you make or what your position is in a company or the awards you've won, right? Success is having fulfillment. And I know several people who push a broom at a local grocery store that are very successful, more successful than you and I sometimes. Like, they're happy. They love life. They have gratitude. They're excited. They're empowering and helping and coaching other people, and anything in life that they touch, they care about them and they want to help people. That's success. People think it's just chasing the dollar, just chasing the fortune, just chasing the award. That's not what it's about. And I think that's where a lot of us entrepreneurs get lost. It's about how much money I can make and what I can drive. You're chasing the wrong thing. How many employees' lives can you change? How many customers' lives can you change? How can you serve other people? When you make things bigger than you, things start to evolve and go in a better direction.
Well, I got to say, Jason, I love that point about it. Success isn't purely define my money. Obviously, money is an important part of that. But I think about that in a way of inspiring team members around you in this context. I had John Lee Dumas on my show a few weeks ago, and I asked him, John, how do you hire an employee and make sure they stick around for the long term? Because HR, hiring, difficult, very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And what he pointed out was you got to find that one thing. Maybe it's not the money. Maybe it's they want an extra day on the weekend. Maybe it's they really feel strongly about what you're doing or selling. And I think
there's no wrong thing to want. Everyone wants some people want a career because they want that title. They want to move up, but it's not about the money. It's about the position, and they want to feel relevant. Some people chase the money. That can be part of it. It can't be your main part. And some people chase the excitement of what they're doing. Like, think about the nonprofit people out there. Think about the philanthropists out there that are changing the world. They're not making money, but they're empowering and helping people, and that gets exciting. And so you have to find what drives you to make you feel successful, and then you need to share that and let it come out, exuberate through your body and soul to everybody around you that's working with you or for you.
Yeah, I really like that point, because I think, like you said, as business owners, it often is about the KPIs, it's about the cash, about the money, it's about the profit, about the revenue, and all that's very important. But I as I get older, as I get more experience, I'm coming to understand that that's not really what it's all about, because you get a job anywhere making six figures pretty, maybe not easily, but if you're really passionate about what you're doing and you're empowering others around you to be passionate, I agree with you. That's the key. I have
an 80-20 rule too. So let's not defer from KPIs. I'm a big believer if things are still result driven. Like, if we can't hit the numbers, we terminate or write up, put on a PIP plan 20% of our staff every month.
Wow.
Because I believe the top 20% of your team does 80% of the work. The next 60% does 20% of the work. And that bottom 20%, they're just the haters, the complainers. They make excuses. They hold everybody down. They're spoiled milk, rotten everything around them. That's my belief. And so when I created that mindset early in Powerhome Sold, when I was struggling to pay the bills and, we couldn't be profitable and I didn't get a paycheck for 2 years, I realized that if I want to be the United States Postal Service and flatline and be the same, then all I care about is how long someone works for me. That's not what I care about. I care about growth. I care about hitting those KPIs. So I put them in place, and wherever the line in the sand is for the bottom 20%, if I've got 10 employees, 2 of them are getting written up every month for not hitting their numbers. Because I believe in competition and evolution keeps going. And so we've got 2,100 employees, and each director in each department, they have their KPIs that are adjusted quarterly, and the bottom 20% is written up. And if they're in there 2 months in a row, they got to go. Because we don't want it to be a stopping zone for somebody to clock in and clock out. It's either a career and they believe in it and they're passionate and they're all in, or they're not. And so we have 2,100 employees, but we fire and hire thousands a year. Because it's about getting new blood in there. That's how you build a rocket ship. You want to hire new people all the time that are hungry, that want to grow with the company, that are excited, that want to provide for their family. Not somebody that's like, I'm just going to come in and clock in. That shit falls apart quick, and we move on from them really fast. And that's kind of empowering. And some people are like, man, that's the wrong way to do it. No, it's not the wrong way to do it. That's the right way to build a company. If I'm trying to maintain a company and I'm worried about shareholders, all right, I'm going to worry about churn. But when we're building a company, no, we've got to have accountability. And the world doesn't have enough accountability right now in today's world. So we put a line in the sand, and when we hire you, we're like, look, Mark, if you're in the bottom 20% 2 months in a row, you're fired. So just don't be there. If you go in there once, you got a write-up, no big deal, you jump out. But there's no reason why some people can be at the top and some people at the bottom. It's all up here, right? We could teach skill set, but it's all about passion. It's all about compassion. It's all about, what they believe in, how they're going to emphasize their job and give their efforts. I'm a big believer, and I ask people this, I do all our sales meetings and our production meetings, so they all get to hear the voice of the CEO once a month. And I say boldly and blatantly, is it fair that, and I ask everybody, does your check clear 100% of the time? Yeah. Did you get paid everything you were due? Yes. Then how come in some cases we pay people 100% of their pay and they give us 70% effort? It's not fair. It's not fair. We don't get 30% of our pay back. So we have put those KPIs in there to really balance that out. For those that aren't putting in the effort, those are the ones that weed themselves out. And that's just my belief. It's worked for me. And it's worked. We're building a great culture. Everybody knows the deal. And it's okay if you have a bad month, but it's not okay to have 2 bad months. And really, if you set your mind straight, you look at other people and you try to, be coached and you get excited and you want to learn and you're giving 100% effort, there's a reason. I mean, as long as we're seeing efforts, we keep people. But the ones we end up letting go are the ones that just don't care. They're just clocking in. They're just wasting time. They're just wasting the opportunity and they're hurting those around them. And we got to move on from them fast.
So this is an interesting point. I want to actually ask you a question on this, Jayson, because obviously you're doing something right, 2,100 employees and growth. I mean, when I'm doing my research, I'm 1,600. And then right before, you're like, Mark, we actually have grown a lot over the past few months. We're at 2,100 employees. Yeah. Empathy is big, right? Compassion towards others is really important. These are themes that we're seeing in the business world. Competition it's kind of getting a bad rap recently. And I'm wondering if you got pushback, Jayson, when you started setting these key performance indicators. You started saying, hey, if you're in the bottom rung for 2 months straight, we're going to have to let you go so you can find something. Did you get pushback and people were like, well, Jayson, how are we letting these people go? Don't we be compassionate towards them, their issues? Did you get pushback on this theme, this process as you started to roll it out?
I rolled the theme out in 16. When we almost closed the doors at the end of 15, when we lost money and I still wasn't getting a paycheck, I came in and fired about 80% of the team because I felt like nobody was doing nothing. And I started doing everything, bootstrapped, everything I could do. And then I built from the ground up and I set the 80-20 rule in place right then. We had 30-something employees. So it's always been there. And sometimes I have to reemphasize it to the directors like, hey, where's your 80-20? We do a director's call where we see everybody's results, where they're at, how they're growing, great things. But then we also see their 80-20. And I want to see them moving and burning. Like, we don't want to replace people, Mark, that want to work for us. We don't want to replace people that are struggling with training. That's not who we put in the 20%. If they're trainable and they're given effort, we're not going to put them there. But it's those that get too good for the system or get too cute for the system, or it's just a stopping ground for them real quick, another step for them to get to somewhere else. Those are the ones we weed out that are wasteful. And look, there's a lot of costs in hiring and firing. We know that. But there's also something to be said that competition brings the greatness. I run my companies like I would run a sports team. I want the best players on the court, and I want the best bench possible. And if my bench starts to get weak or my court starts to get weak, I replace them. And so I challenge our employees. I want you to feel like you're going to own the company one day, because one day you will. They're going to have stock options. They need to run the business like that. Every day's a playoff game. We did great. We break a record. Great. We clap for about 5 minutes. We got the next record to hit. We have that mentality. So yeah, are we compassionate? We probably could be more compassionate. But if somebody's sick or somebody's got something going on in the family, like, we love our employees. We give over $1 million to foundations and local communities a year. We give back to our employees. We give away awards and trips and everything. And we pay top dollar. But if somebody's got something going on, they're going to tell their manager, and their manager is going to be trained and be professional enough to know what's going on and have empathy with them if there's a problem. That's one thing. But if it's somebody that has the same, I believe life and business are like golf, right? We all have the same problems. There's a sand bunker there. There's out of bounds there. There's rough there. The green's fast. Great. So when someone makes an excuse that, Mark, you're doing 22 sales a month and I'm doing 2, that's because I suck at 2 and you're great at 22. What's the difference? It's not that you got lucky. The difference is you worked harder. The difference is you listen. You're paying attention. You're wanting to learn more. You're asking questions. You're following the system. It's the same in customer service. If you take phone calls, how come you're taking 100 calls and I'm taking 10? I'm not doing my job. And the faster you move on from that, everyone else, why should 1 or 2 people hold the entire team back? Why should they pick up the slack for them? That's how I look at it. So I kind of reverse it, and I feel like I'm giving empathy to those that are busting their tail and not the ones that aren't.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like Gary Vee says, you hire quick, fire faster. Yep. So I'm on board. Now, something you also had mentioned here, Jayson, was your company almost went bad. It almost went really bad. 2 years in, you sell your home to fund the business. You're going all in. You saw something there. You believed in something. But when your company is bleeding business, I'm just wondering, what were the things that you saw that said, you know what, we're bleeding money, but I think this is the right thing. You convinced your wife to sell the house. Like, what was the thing that you saw that said, okay, this is the right map. This is the way I want to go. What'd you see?
Well, it's something I believed in. And I feel like if you believe in something wholeheartedly and you have intuition that it can work, then you need to go all in on that. And my fear was, if I quit early, I would always second guess what if. So I I think of, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street movie where he's like, you're going to have to carry me out of here, right? He's going all in until he went to jail, right? Think about that thought process was like, look, we're just going to have to go bankrupt before we shut this bad boy down. I'm going to have to go all in and lose everything before I close the doors. And I had to be willing to risk it all because I would have questioned and challenged and bothered myself and had regret if I didn't. Like, what if I would have done that? What if I would have not been scared and sold my house and put the money in there? Could I have done that? And I look now, like with the 2,100 employees and, you know, the 35,000 customers and 5 NFL stadiums, I almost quit. Like, I almost quit. And I had to weigh it out. I prayed about it. I weighed out it. I talked to friends, mentors, talked to my wife. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And I said, you know what? If I fail, I'm going to explode failing, and then I'm going to pick up the pieces. That's better than limping away failing. So I'm going all in. And I did that, and it worked out, you know, and I don't believe in luck. I believe hard work brings luck, meaning like when the harder you work, the better things happen. But that's when I realized I needed not be scared or egotistical to ask for help or guidance. So as I started to grow, it was like, hey, I need to, you know, how can I do this better? I started to ask people so I can learn more. I didn't want to be this know-it-all that fails his company, fails his team. You know, it's the third company I built that I was part of, and I've never failed before. And my fear of failure was bigger than my fear of losing everything, because I can go get things back. But to tell at the time the 40 employees at the end of 15 or the 120 employees at the end of 16 that we're closing, that I didn't want to have to do. And, you know, I don't wish it on anybody, but it made me who I am now. I'm willing to risk it all every single day. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not a true entrepreneur. You have to be, because how are people going to follow you if you can't put it all on the table? How can you ask them to follow you into the storm and to walk through those hot coals and to do something if you can't put it all on the table? You're fooling yourself, and then you're going to try to fool them. It's not going to work. That's my belief.
Yeah, and I do think that that's true entrepreneurship in a way. Is like you said, you lay it all on the line and you make it happen. I had Tara Zerker on my show a few months ago, and she had said that entrepreneurship is like jumping out of a plane and not just putting on your parachute midway down, but building a parachute on the way down. I said, whoa,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely something to think about before you start getting into the quote unquote entrepreneurship or putting that hashtag in your Instagram bio is nice and as beautiful as those are. I do want to talk a little bit about the podcast, Jayson, the True Underdog podcast.
See that right there? Bam, right there. True Underdog podcast. Love your haters.
So I want to talk a little bit, Jayson, about your show, the True Underdog podcast. You got the shirt on, you got it in your bio here. A lot of business owners aren't really leveraging the power of podcasting. So I want to just, you talked a little bit about how important mentoring is and connecting with the right people. How important has podcasting been to facilitating that goal in that end?
Oh, it has been massive. So when I won the Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2019, first of all, I was one of the first to never go to college and win. So it was a big deal. Those guys and ladies were like, because when you win, you're kind of like this group now. And they were like, look, you're going to have to write a book. And I said, I ain't never read a book. I ain't writing a book. It's just not who I am. Like, we got to do a podcast or something. So, I was starting to do the TV commercials. And I said, you know what? I'll try this podcast thing. I'm friends with a couple NFL players. I know a couple high names people. I'll give it a shot. I'll play around with it and have fun with it. It became addicting. Like every time I would talk to somebody, I would learn so much. And then anytime someone would interview me, I would learn even more about myself and be like, wow. And I would get feedback like, dude, like, you said scared money don't make money. And now I went and got a second vehicle to start detailing cars even more. And I'm crushing it. Like, when you can help people that you don't even know, you can't buy that feeling, right? The best part of being an entrepreneur running my company is when I get to hear employees, man, I just bought my wife an engagement ring. We just had our kid. We just bought a big old house. We just went on a Christmas vacation. We just went to Disney. We, all these things. We flew private for the first time. All of these stories you hear, it gives me chills. I get excited because you're helping better people's lives, right? So when I started to mess around with the podcast, playing around, and I was getting these messages of helping these random people out, I'm like, oh my gosh, it became addicting. And the show took off, and all of a sudden I started meeting people that I never thought I would meet. And some of them become my mentors or coaches or dear friends. David Meltzer back there, that dude right there. He's like my CEO coach. I love the guy. We're like best friends. I've been on 3 of his shows on TV, but we hit it off on the podcast and it was like, wow. And so it started to grow. It became recently, it passed our boy Gary V's for number 3. And, you know, and the podcast is finally making money. I was like, what, you get paid money for running a podcast? That's pretty cool, right? Okay. But I did it just to give back and have fun, and it took off, and, you know, I love it. And I don't invest a lot of time in it, man. I'm running a huge company, and that's my main thing is Powerhome. But the TrueUnderdog podcast, I probably spend 2-3 hours a week involved in, and you know, it's doing great, and I'm making a lot of relationships, and I interview pretty good. I feel like I get interviewed a little better, but I interview pretty good, but I learn from the interview. I try to go into an interview like, I know nothing about this person. I want to be as inspired and as surprised as the audience is. So I don't like a big research thing. I like to name, school, whatever they're doing. That's it. Like, tell me the story. And I think that that's done really well with my audience. And then when I get interviewed, I've got some crazy, wacky stories. People are like, you need a reality TV show. I'm like, yeah. But, you know, our family's crazy, our business, everything's just nuts. And so people can relate to that. They have fun hearing my stories. And so it's taken off.
I mean, one of the things that you had mentioned there, Jayson, and one of the reasons that I think so there's a lot of reasons why I think podcasting is really important for every business owner, but it's learning how to ask better questions. Right. I think that's the key to sales. That's the key to customer service. You know, this has kind of been a common theme throughout our episode, is finding out what moves people and empowering them and inspiring them through that. And just podcasting in general. I actually had David Meltzer on my show too, and he said something that's really changed the way that I run my life and business. And it's that he said, if it takes less than 2 minutes, Mark, I do it right then. I was like, that's genius.
He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and most kind.
Yeah. I mean, very, very open, very gracious. And that's another, obviously a big benefit, is you get access to people that you know, without a podcast, you might have never had a chance to meet David.
So I'm a big Les Brown fan, like love, like all his motivational stuff. I got to record him recently. Wow. Right? Who would have thought I could interview Les Brown? Kevin O'Leary, I'm not a huge fan, but I get to interview him. It was cool. Dan Locke, like some of the people that you get to meet. Barry Sanders is my all-time child hero. I did commercials with him. So I have to do a commercial with him and then put him on the podcast and pick his brain was like next level. So you're right. And you learn so much just asking people questions. A, you learn how to ask questions better. B, you learn how to listen and take some of that in. And I believe everybody has things to offer. And so you can learn from anybody you meet as long as you ask the right questions. And so the podcast is really like my coaching session. A lot of people get the gems from it, but I'm getting coached or I'm coaching, and I love it. And it's addictive, and it's good. Now, you know, I didn't even really ever listen to a podcast before then. I've listened to some now, and you know, I can't listen to my own. I never listen to my own. I don't critique myself. I don't want to hear it. I hear my voice. I go, I don't want to do it. So I have faith that it's good because it's doing well, but I'm not really sure. I've never heard it.
Well, I think, like you said, if you're getting value out of it, you're making the connections, people are inspired, and they're emailing you, they're messaging you, you're doing something right. You're doing something right. And frankly, if there's stuff in the podcasting or digital media process that you don't enjoy, you just, like we said, you outsource that. You find someone that's an expert and kind of fine tune it. If we tweak your microphone settings or whatever, like there's a lot of small things that you can do. All right, cool. So Jayson, before we get into the overrated, underrated section, I do want to talk a bit about your book, Own Your Power. So Own Your Power, coming out October 12th. What is one key takeaway that you really hope it just shines through the book? What's that one key takeaway?
Well, it's 8 principles of a no excuse life. And some of the chapters are, you know, make your own map. Don't let the outside world dictate what you're going to do. Don't let them hold you back. Don't let them decide for you, whether it be business or relationship or personally. You have your choice in life to do what you want to do. Another chapter, Scared Money, Don't Make Money. It tells some of the stories that I've gone through and betting on myself. I shared a little bit here on the show where you have to be able to go all in on yourself or nobody will follow you. Other chapters are, you know, there's no elevator in life. You got to take the stairs. And that talks about the grind and the 1%. If you could be 1% better every day, that's like taking the stairs. You're getting better. You're climbing to be better. You don't need instant gratification. You get discouraged on that. different outlooks of and principles to really not make excuses. And I think the biggest takeaway is live each day like a playoff game, right? It's okay to be a little happy, but don't celebrate too much, because when you do and you get comfortable, you fall down. That's my belief. You got to be like, my therapist, I think everybody needs a therapist and everybody needs a coach. My therapist always says, I never enjoy the journey. I keep moving the destination. And that's who I'm intended to be, right? That's who God intended me to be. I'd love to stop and smell the roses. I don't have time. But that's okay. Some people do, and I want them to, but we can only stop for a few seconds because we've got places to go. And you got to have that mindset to keep moving and moving your destination further back. Otherwise, if you're not challenging yourself and you're not growing and you're not, believing and learning or coaching or pushing the envelope higher, then to me, you're withering away and you're dying. You're staying the same, and same's not going to get anything done in any part of life. So I'm a big believer of, you got to keep the movement going.
I must say, Jayson, over the past few years, I've been building up the digital media agency here. I did not understand how important momentum is to a business, because I would have those wins, right? Big or small. I'd have these wins. I'm like, okay, it's time to celebrate and relax. But then everything starts to kind of fall apart. To me, momentum, we talk about perseverance, all these important characteristics of a great entrepreneur, but I think for any business to be successful, you have to build and maintain that momentum. And like you said, that comes from the stairs. Because if you take the elevator up, you've just missed out on how valuable that is. Super, super important. All right, cool. So Jayson, before I let you go here, let's get into the overrated, underrated section. Again, we are here with Jayson Waller, founder of Powerhome Solar. Book is Own Your Power, out October 12th, and you can listen to him on the TrueUnderdog podcast on YouTube. Jayson is not only a believer in business, but in digital media, which is what After Hours entrepreneurs are all about. It's leveraging that digital media to grow your business, not just now, but in the future. All right, Jayson, overrated, underrated TV ads.
Overrated, and we do a lot of them, but it's really for branding. And, we argue with our ad agency all the time. They're like, that's what moves the needle. I believe it moves the needle for some, but I believe it's just they see it in the morning or they see it at night on the news. And I think it's good, but I think it's overrated.
I've never actually bought some. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've definitely bought things because subliminally that works. All right, cool. Overrated, underrated virtual conferences.
Underrated. I think it's important because now you can have more people on there. Yeah, you can learn more. You don't have to ship, everyone doesn't have to fly or ship all the products and things to go and talk about things and have meetings. I think it's made us a better community out in the entrepreneur space or business space to be able to have these virtual meetings.
Overrated, underrated digital courses.
I would say overrated. I think you learn by trial and error. I mean, I didn't take any courses, and I used to manage all our social for the first 2 years open on Facebook and Instagram and all that. So I think they're overrated because I have a lot of people take the courses and then still don't know what they're doing when they come in. It's like, I thought you took class for this or school for this, and they didn't.
Well, I think the problem with courses is you get so caught up in the education aspect, but not the action aspect. You got to take action. Ladies and gentlemen, After Hours entrepreneurs, you got to take action. Overrated, underrated home ownership.
Underrated. I think everybody should own a home. That's the American dream. I disagree with Grant Cardone. I had him on the show. I disagree. You should own your home, right? Just like you should own your power, not rent your power. It's why you should get solar. But, who wants to pay somebody else that's making money on their home? Like, you should own your home.
I'm with you. That's a Florida mentality. A lot of Floridians feel that way. Overrated, underrated Bitcoin.
Oh, I think it's overrated. And I didn't get in on it, and I've regretted, but now I see it going up and down. I can't play. I'll have a heart attack. I can't play that game. So something I don't understand. So I could be wrong because I don't know it. What I don't know, I don't know. I see it could be in the future, but I just struggle with it because the government sticks their teeth in stuff. So until that passes that, I get nervous.
Well, I think the best investment you can make is in yourself, so you can own your power, just like Jayson's book. Last question here for you, Jayson. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what do you say?
I would say reach out and get a coach and don't have a big ego to do everything yourself. Learn from other people and don't be scared to hand the keys off to other people to help you grow. Because that's the hardest thing as an entrepreneur. You want to control everything, and really that's not how you grow. And I learned that. Like, you have to have people that think like you but are different, that you can hand the keys off and trust. And it is the hardest thing. You mentioned it earlier. I would tell myself, trust that system a lot more faster, because other people can grow and blossom to be great things as well. And they'll benefit both of you or all of you, whoever's there on the team. And so I wish I'd have learned that earlier, because I tried to do everything myself for too long.
Well said. Wise words. Jayson Waller, thanks for joining the After Hours Entrepreneur.
Bam!
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.